questions is to have sources from the region itself. You know, if you got a question about China, pass on Jinwei, but do the South China Morning Post. You know, if you've got questions about, you know, South Africa, there are several good newspapers in South Africa that are all available on LexisNexis, as well as other searches that are available at your library. So that's your best bet, to use LexisNexis. It'll save you a ton of time. I guess a quick show of hands, how do people's teams do files? Do they do them electronically, by paper, or do you do it, and when you do the files, do you do it by country, or do you do signed newspapers? I'll go.
Well, when we assigned, like, to decide to do collecting our sources, we divide them up by newspapers.
Okay.
Because it's more efficient. If you're focusing on your topic, you're going to wind up covering the same ground as somebody else, just not actually saving that article.
Okay.
So we just do it. We divide it up by newspapers, but when we sort them, we usually sort them by topic electronically.
Okay. Super.
We switched to electronic files last year, and we pretty much do country by country, and then for domestic issues, it's topic by topic,
Okay.
and that's how we sort them.
That's, I mean, both, I know there are a lot of schools that do both systems. I'm more familiar with the latter. I think it's a little easier in the, you know, with the internet being the way that it is, with search engines, simply because you're not necessarily covering the same ground anymore. You know, 15 years ago, yeah, you'd be like, oh, I'm looking for articles about South Africa, and you'd both be reading, like, you know, the LA Times. But you can search through, like, LexisNexis, and you'll find all the articles you're looking for, along with other newspapers. So, I mean, there's something to be said for the dividing it by newspaper, because it keeps people accountable, that they have to look at the paper, get the article out. But at the same time, I think by doing it the other way, it opens you up to newspapers that you typically wouldn't cut or wouldn't have the ability to cut, because the library won't have it, and it'll save you time that, you know, because when you actually go to the newspaper's website, you got to format it, you got to print it out. You know, at least with LexisNexis, you can slap that on a Word document and then cross-apply that to the, you know, to your documents that you email to each other. We have gone much faster than I've expected, and we're coming up to one of my last points is what you want to do when you're prepping. One, you know, it goes back to the answer. The answer, you know, has to, you know, actually address what is being asked. That is something that you need to do. And I would say about, hopefully, the 5.5 minute mark, maybe 6 minutes, you will have your answer and you'll have your main points. What you want to do is double check before you go any further that your main points link to your answer and that your answer actually addresses the topic. Also, it never hurts to reread the question. There have been a lot of times where I've gotten a slip of paper, thought it said something else. 6 minutes in, I've grabbed all of my files for, you know, let's say something out of the domestic box, domestic econ, when it's really an international econ question, and I'm trying to play catch up. These are all very small things that you can do that'll help make your experience in the prep room that much better. And that's why I actually recommend using a legal pad, because it's so much easier to see what you're writing. When you get it on a note card, and I understand for those who are using note cards, there's no time to write it on a legal pad and then transcribe it to the note card, but it's usually so small and, you know, not as neat as on a legal pad, where you can actually see the formation of your speech as you go along. I always like to set the 15-minute mark to get out of the prep room. You know, obviously, as, you know, newcomers to the event, don't worry about that as much. I would say get out of there by the 20-minute mark. You want to have enough time to collect yourself, and also at the same time run through your speech at least once. Get it through your head, you know, get down what you want to say, get the transitions down, so that you'll be able to, you know what you want to do when you go into the room. Yes?
I don't have any experience
Okay.
whatsoever with this. Now, you're saying the files, how do you...
Okay, no, yeah.
Where are these files?
Some teams have their files on computers, so they'll, you know, depending on what team you're on, they will compile all of the articles based on what you're assigned to do. and then they'll put them together as a Word document. So you'll just access it like on Microsoft Word as any other like document.
But you're getting the questions 30 minutes before you.
You prepare all of your articles beforehand. Basically, you just kind of
Do you know what the top? You're just researching everything.
you're covering as much ground as possible.
In the last 30 days, generally.
Yeah, I mean, any files that are older than 30 days you don't want to use, but, I mean, around election time, life gets a little easier, at least domestic-wise, because, you know, it's going to be presidential election, it's going to be congressional election, you know, it's going to be, will the Democrats get 60 senators for the next term so that they can pass legislation they want? What will Bush do in the remaining days of his administration? It's going to be those types of things, which makes, you know, a lot easier than, say, in the middle of an off congressional year. So internationally, you just want to cover, you know, what's in the newspaper. I mean, most tournaments, you're going to have questions that you will know what's going on. You won't. Most times, people won't throw you curveballs. You know, there's 1 or 2 tournaments where you'll get a question that you'll see what's going on with Trinidad and Tobago's, you know, spice market. But when you get that question, you have 3 questions to choose from, and typically the other question is going to be, you know, the equivalent of like Iraq. What's up with that? So, like, there's no need to really like worry that much. Like, you prepare as best you can. And that's why you know, whoever decided a long time ago to have 3 questions, that was why. So, you know, you wouldn't get, you know, caught up in that situation.
Something to keep in mind too, when you talk to your coach or some members of your team about the files, they'll have some sort of structure probably already in place.
Okay.
So it's not as scary as it sounds, because it's work that will be split up amongst a bunch of people probably. And so, and then,
It's not as scary as it sounds. No, it's. I'll be honest. It does take. At first, it takes some time because you need to learn, you know, how to like, you know, get the articles, find the articles, and compile them and everything. But once you get it, you can breeze through it. It's not, you know, it's